Good evening. Welcome to the March 2024 Environmental Commission meeting. Let's go ahead and get going because I think we got a lot to talk about tonight. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Lori, can you do roll call, please?
Chairwoman Thompson.
Here.
Vice Chairman Myjack.
Here.
Member Yount.
Here.
Member Tucker. Here. Member Perez.
Here.
Member Delgado.
Here.
Member Fliss. Alternate Member Young. Alternate Member Kosi.
So since we're missing a regular member, one of the alternates gets to vote tonight? I can appoint one? I'm going to appoint the new guy.
The new guy.
Yeah, let him have a chance. All right, so you're, huh? She said she's gonna be here? If Yvette shows up, then you won't be voting. How's that sound? Okay, yeah, that's right. You can, and Bill, you are welcome to comment as you always do, so, yeah. Huh? All right, thank you. So we do have a quorum. Can everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so you've got the minutes from the last meeting. Can I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Can I say something was left out first? Or is that after?
Yeah, well,
The
let's
motion?
make a motion and then we'll have discussion.
Okay.
Somebody-
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, a second?
Second.
All right, a motion by Member Perez, seconded by Member Tucker. Is there any discussion?
Apparently, I voted, but I am not listed as being here at the meeting. So I think my name was just left off.
And I believe Mr. Parrish was here at the meeting too, and he's not listed in the minutes as being present.
Can we make those changes? So we'll make those changes, those two changes to the minutes. Okay.
All right, anything else about the minutes, Mr. Perez? Lights on?
Oh, sorry.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. The minutes from February 14th are approved. Petitions and requests from the public present. These will be on non-agenda items. Does anybody wish to speak?
I'm the only one? Handout, please. You're supposed to have a handout to them for my speak and talk. It's about this size. That's it. Looks like that. Does that say from Stan Johnston? Is that what it says? Or is it something else? Okay, that's the one. Bill, you want to get one? Okay. Laura, if you don't have one, I'll get you one later. Do you have one? Okay, you do have one. Good. Okay. May I start?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. You guys know that I'm Stan Johnston, and for at least now 3 council meetings, I've said the same thing at the council meetings, and that's what I put on here. It says about it's the same question I've come to TEC, and TEC has asked council that didn't get on through council, and that is it says something to the effect: is anyone in city council going to acknowledge the sewage spill September through November? Coming out of manholes, Greenwood Street, and into 9 city streets, as witnessed by me and Larley Thompson. The person who turned off the alarm and red flashing light at the lift station, photos, videotapes, and so forth, sewage flowing out of manholes. Anyhow, So I've sent 2 letters to you, and this is one of the letters today. And the closing of the letter says, it lists a bunch of people. It's here. It says, that's the last page. Our police department, city government, city council, FDEP, public hospital, governor, EPA, for today, 13 churches and so forth. Then it comes down to the end here. It says, includes me as a professional engineer, Mr. Stauffer, Smith, Ofoso, Cook, all professional engineers here in the city. And it says, all of whom, this includes TEC, are all of whom have sadly, disappointedly, ironically, and outrageously failed in this task and their responsibility to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So this continues to be a serious matter. And I'm also at fault too, because it continues. In other words, we're talking about the denial of sewage spills, massive sewage spills, by even Sean Stauffer, who was the director of water resources, and who I've just contacted the board, the Florida Board of Professional Engineers, to file a complaint against. This is a serious matter, and I'm asking to the TEC to continue this. And I was hopeful that it would be on new business. Again, in fact, as I even asked for that, I believe I asked for it. I'm asking you to continue this. And at last night at the council meeting, by golly, someone had petitioned a request, had them vote, had council vote on an issue, and understandably, as I'm telling you, that they add items to the council meeting as they progress. They voted on things that were not on the agenda. Very different than what Mr. Parrish had told you. And I see nothing on it on the new agenda about this same item. Nothing on it. I don't know how it's being erased. So I'm asking you to put it on the agenda again, to contact city council about this sewage spill into 9 city streets, witnessed by me and Larley Thompson and many other people, that the city never happened, says it never happened. I have a attachment to this email that is a letter by Mr. Stauffer, says it never happened. The sewage spill for Hurricanes Ian and Hurricanes Nicole. Massive sewage spill into 9 city streets. Big puddles of sewage, darkened sewage and so forth. And I videotaped it coming out of manholes. And that is on, there's 2 letters attached to this email. One from me to the city, to Sean Stauffer, and one from Sean Stauffer to FDEP. The letter to me contains videos and photos of sewage coming out of the manholes. And so what does he write on his letter? He says, it never happened. Even though he's got a video of it sent to me on that letter. Says it never happened. I want you guys to help me. Do something about it. I'm trying. I would like you guys to try too, because you're responsible for it. I'd like you to ask me some questions. I'm asking you why it hasn't been going against the council. I ask council why won't they answer it. And obviously, in a way, they're so embarrassed about it. They lied. Stauffer lied. Any questions? I think there should be questions, because it's your responsibility too, not just mine. Okay, I'm leaving. No, thank you.
Anybody have any questions? I will comment that we have multiple times asked that this be looked into. The answer has always been that the DEP has closed the case because the city responded that the spill never happened. I don't know what to do to change that, Stan.
Do it again, ask again. Ask again. This is a massive sewage spill. Massive. Looks like you got no backbone, no spine.
Does anybody else want to speak under petitions and requests? All right, seeing none, let's move on. The next item on the agenda is old business, and that would be the landscape technical manual ordinance. Ms. Legary, are you ready?
Yes, I am. So the last time I was here, which was early in February, we discussed the current manual that I had presented to the council or to the commission regarding the update to the overall landscape technical manual. And there were some things that came back that the manual was to be updated based on the new hardiness zones of 9B to 10A, as well as the list only needed to show species that were either native or Florida-friendly, specifically within those zones. So we have updated that list to only show species that are within 9B and 10A that will grow within Brevard County and that are native and from the Florida-friendly plant list, as well as the Florida Native Plant Society list. So we have comprised a list of all of those species, as well as there was a note to add in wildlife and pollinators on that manual, and we have done that as well. So now we are bringing it back to you guys to see if you will recommend the list to Planning Commission.
All right, I think you did a really, really nice job, and you did everything that we asked you to do, including keeping it between 60 and 70% natives. According to Kay, it's 67% natives. Good job. And I like the wildlife and pollinators, but I'm going to open it up to the commission to see if anybody has any comments or any requests, any further requests. Again, I think you did an amazing job, and we really appreciate all of your hard work. I have some concerns in the palm list about, specifically about the palms that are susceptible to lethal bronzing disease. One of my comments is that at the very end of the list, in your footnotes, you call it lethal browning, but it's actually lethal bronzing. Because when I Googled lethal browning, it kept taking me to lethal bronzing disease.
That's a spelling error that we will update.
I think you need to fix that. And so my concern is that, we've got these plants, you've identified them as being susceptible to lethal bronzing, but if you've ever driven around like in the area out by Disney World or coming back from Georgia last week, the traffic was so bad on I-95, we got off at St. Augustine and came down US 1. There's a lot of places where the landscaping has included the big Sylvester palms, and it's horrible what's happening to those trees. They are dying. They're awful looking. And I question the wisdom of this committee for approving plants that we know are susceptible to this awful disease, and for the trauma that it's going to create if somebody puts them in their landscape and then they die and they've got to replace them. And I don't understand why we still have them in here. I mean, this is not a mandatory list, and anybody that wants to plant these palms can do so, but I question our wisdom of including them on the list. And those would be the Pindo palm, Chinese fan palm, the Phoenix species of date palms, and the windmill palm. I personally would like to see them taken off the list because, like I said, anybody that wants to use them and take the chance, they can do so. But I think that I'm not sure that it's a good thing for us to be including them on our list. And I'll open the floor to other people's comments.
The only thing I might add is that these plants are not native in Brevard County, right? They're not found in the Atlas of Florida native plants. So I would agree with you.
I think with the list of palms that are here, the deletion of those that are questionable would probably be negligible.
Yeah, it would still leave quite a few palms. It would, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There more than a dozen palms would still be included on the list. If you take those, I think 4 species off, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So it would just be removing 4 species of palms from the list.
Do we need a motion?
Staff has their light on.
I just have one comment on, if you have the ability to open up the city's Muni Code, open up the browser, you can see in section 330-322 of the city's code, specifically table 30-6, it's titled Acceptable Palm Tree Substitutions. This list that you have here is to help us implement what the code says. This particular table, which is not on your agenda, it's a separate item in the code. And it talks about acceptable palm tree substitutions. So in other words, it lists some of the palms that you're talking about to help, that can be used to help count towards a required tree. So for example, cabbage palms, 3 cabbage palms can count towards 1 tree per the code. 2 Washington palms can count towards 1 tree. And there are some of the others that you have identified as well that can count towards that. So if you decide to take some of these palms that are on the list that she has before you out of that as the recommended list, then there might be an inconsistency with some of the list that's in this table 30-6 inside the city's landscaping code for purposes of determining how many palms can equate to 1 particular tree. If you could say I would recommend, if you, instead of removing them, maybe make a notation that these are probably not the best option or something along those lines, as opposed to just removing them completely.
It's a recommendation list, right?
That's true.
So you want me to make it less than recommended on the recommendation list or more than less than recommended?
I'm only telling
They
you what
shouldn't
the
be
code
there
says.
if it's not recommended.
So if you decide to remove them from here and say that they're not recommended, that's what they'll be. But I'm just pointing out to you what this other table says in the city's land development regulations related to how many palms can you count towards 1 tree, as for purposes of landscaping requirements.
Maybe we shouldn't be planting palms, and we should actually be planting canopy trees. That would be better anyway.
Well,
So
that's up
I'm
to-
not at all adverse to that happening, to
Okay.
having fewer palms to choose from.
And so can we come back and make a recommendation from this body that the code be changed so that we can do that? I think that's probably the next step.
Yes.
Let's see if there's any are there any cards, Lori?
Yes, we have 2 cards.
Okay, call cards.
Kay St. Ange.
Hello, yes, Kay St. Ange, Maryland Avenue. Why is this list of recommended trees for landscapers so important, you might ask yourself? The list is used by landscapers of new developments when creating their landscape plans to meet the requirements of city code. For instance, city landscape yard standards require 4 overstory trees per 200 feet, 2 conifers per 200 feet, 1 understory tree per 200 feet, and 1 understory scrub per 15 feet. And as Brad was just mentioning at this table that he referred to, when choosing the tree species for each category, the landscapers consult the tech manual list. If the list contains a high percentage of native plants, landscapers will be more likely to plant native plants. We all know that native plants support native bugs and caterpillars required by native baby birds. We have to have these native plants for native birds to survive. 30% of the population of birds has disappeared since the 1970s. P&Z has asked that TEC work on this list to make sure it contains a majority of native plants. The city consultant's updated list of recommended plants for landscapers for the tech manual is in your agenda packet. 67% of the plants on the list are labeled native plants. But some plants labeled native on the consultant's list might not naturally grow in Brevard. I believe you received an email from somebody that had some notations that some of them were not native to Brevard. So the consultant was asked to only include trees that belong in 10A or 9B, but I think there are some discrepancies there. Kim Gibbs of the Native Plant Society has created the Brevard County Native Plants for Landscapers list, which she provided you. All the plants on this list naturally grow in Brevard County. 70% of the plants in Brevard County Native Plant list are in the updated consultant's list in your agenda packet. Ideally, the Brevard County native plant list would be recommended to council. But as council has rejected 100% native plant lists in the past, I defer to your judgment. The consultant's updated list is far better than a previous list that only contained 33% native. On the consultant's list are 4 palms susceptible to lethal bronzing. These palms should be removed as they could spread the disease to our native palms. That would be disastrous. Yes, please ask that you can change the table, whatever you need to do to get these susceptible palm trees off of this list. I notice that there is no longer a list of invasive species. Perhaps this is because the tree protection ordinance indicates nuisance trees on the Florida Exotic Pest Plant Council should be removed. But I do ask you to ask staff why there is no list of nuisance trees on the list. Once any list is approved by council, local native plant nurseries should be notified so they can start providing these plants to landscapers. This was a concern of the consultant at a previous meeting. P&Z has also asked that TEC create incentives to encourage developers to plant native. As well, 2 council members discussed incentives recently. Michael Majek has some great ideas for incentives for you to consider later on in the agenda. So thank you very much for taking my thoughts into your consideration tonight. Any questions? Very good.
Kimberly Gibbs.
Good evening. My name is Kim Gibbs. I live in Merritt Island. I am an advocate for native plants that grow here in Brevard County. I didn't prepare remarks, so I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here and respond to some of the comments that have been made. I guess first, just a note about lethal bronzing. We've talked about that a little bit in the past. So lethal bronzing started out in Texas. It was initially called the TPPD, Texas Phoenix Date Palm Decline. And now it has spread and it's attacking our native beloved cabbage palms. So we certainly wouldn't want to remove our cabbage palms from the list. But I want to make an important point here. The whole reason that a pest was introduced and started harming these plants was because it came through the non-native plant and nursery industry. And that's how many pest insects and plants come to the United States, is through the nursery plant trade or from untreated wood products. It's important to understand that. The last time I was here, I emphasized the superior value of our native plants. Every native plant is providing some high value to the ecosystem and our habitats. So you don't even need to have those little metadata or little pictures beside them. They're all very important. The Florida Friendly List is really, as I stated before, kind of a gimmick. It seeks to equalize the non-native plants, even the harmless ones, with our native plants, and that's just simply not true. So it was my understanding the last time I attended that the Kimley Horn work was on pause. And for that reason, I took on the project of preparing a native plant list, plants that occur natively here in Brevard County. I'm doing that for my own purposes elsewhere, but I thought I had some encouragement here, and I thought this would be a good place to start sharing that. So I sent that to everyone on the board earlier this week, and I emphasized a couple of points. First of all, that the metadata would be used or could be used to fine-tune the plant list based on the site conditions. I emphasized the importance of all of our native plants and providing that habitat. And I guess in my mind, taking a step back and looking at the big picture, what are we trying to do? We're trying to emphasize or encourage and perhaps even incentivize our native plants so that we can build authentic landscapes that are healthier and benefit the environment in so many different ways. So it seems to me that we should have a list with native plants on it and require a certain amount, whatever that magic number is that you, the decision makers, come up with, and then allow some percentage of ornamentals that are deemed to be safe. There certainly are some ornamentals that are safe and that are not invasive and are not expected to bring in insects and pests. So I guess that's the way that I would approach it. And that's all I wanted to say. If I can be of any assistance, please let me know. I am a member of the Florida Native Plant Society, the local chapter. I'm very passionate about this work, and I'd be happy to help any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and thanks for all the work that you did on that list.
I have a question for
Okay,
Kim.
Member Myjack?
Kim, would you mind coming back up, please? One of the things that I was impressed with during the development of this list was a discussion and understanding of the difference between those plants that are vouchered in Brevard County and those that are Florida native plants. Mm-hmm. Can you express that difference clearly for us on the board so that we understand what the difference is between those that are vouchered in Brevard County versus?
Sure. Yeah. When we say that a plant is vouchered in Brevard County, that means that, well, either we've seen it out there in nature, but vouchered means that it, a herbarium specimen has been collected and notated in the plant atlas. So, this is the Florida Plant Atlas. So that is a website and a project that is managed by the University of South Florida, I believe, and I think they have other partners. And I don't know the detailed workings of it, but the way that we interface with it is by looking through their website. They have a graphical display, and you can look up a plant, and they'll tell you if a specimen has been collected in a particular county.
Okay, so that you know that what's on this list really does come from here. It's truly a native.
It really, truly is, and so it's well adapted to the environments and and the habitats in Brevard County. So we have some, coastal areas and
Right, we have a variety of
We have a
of
variety.
habitats. Do you know how many exactly?
no, not offhand. I mean, I can think of a handful, just,
I think the last time I looked, we were somewhere around 26 or 27 unique habitats in Brevard County.
okay, I couldn't
So,
rattle those
yeah,
off at all.
It's a lot.
And,
I
yeah.
couldn't either. I have to go to the GIS data set to.
And I think it's probably worth noting that because Brevard is such a long county, north to south, that there are a few plants on the list that might grow in the southern portion only and might not be good candidates for growing here. But overall, having a list that is already filtered to include only Brevard native plants is by far more accurate or good candidates than looking at plants that grow anywhere in Florida, because we have such an amazing diversity of plant communities.
So could we distinguish those that are vouchered Brevard County plants from Florida natives? We could even say Florida native, regional native plants. Could we discriminate them that way? The ones that they're native, but they aren't necessarily vouchered in Brevard County, but could grow here.
Are you asking if such a list could be prepared?
No, I'm
And-
trying
and-
to come up with a way of categorizing them so that I can reference them as a group. Would regional natives, Florida regional natives, be another way of referencing those plants that grow, they're native in Florida, but aren't necessarily vouchered in Brevard County?
Yes, I think there would be a number of plants that you would consider regional native and a potential candidate to plant here. They probably just wouldn't be as well suited as the ones that are already growing here.
That's what I was trying to get to, is that there's a pecking order of plants, so to speak, that are beneficial to the county. And it sounds like that order would be those that are native to Brevard County, those vouchered. Others would be native Floridian plants, but not necessarily vouchered in Brevard County. And then potentially, I guess we would say the exotics, the things that are non-native, but are not part of any noxious weed list, whether federal or state, or on the prohibited aquatics list or anything like that.
Right, I think that's a very important component of the plan, to allow some flexibility and to allow some percentage of non-native
Right.
introduced plants to be in the landscape. People have very strong emotional connections to a variety of plants that aren't necessarily native to Brevard County. And I think you would get a lot of pushback if you went too far
Correct.
in requiring
Yeah.
like all natives. I don't think that would go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I'd like to add that my takeaway from the last meeting was similar to what Kimberly pointed out, that we have the expertise and that the list that was being produced by Kimberly and Horn was on hold, but yet it continues. So maybe I'm incorrect, but that was my impression as well, that we had the expertise, Michael, Kimberly, and some others that have intimate knowledge of the subject matter would come up with the list that we would use.
And that was my impression too, but that's not what happened. So we have a list. It's 67% Florida natives, probably most of which would be found here in Brevard County. And I think it's kind of like the sewer spill, Are we going to just keep talking about this over and over and over again? I would be opposed to asking for anything else other than taking those 4 palm trees off the list. I think that a lot of hard work has gone into this. Obviously, the city council chose to continue with Kimberly Horn
Staff, you mean.
and their staff, or somebody did, but it's done. And you know, the marching orders from the city council was to come up with a list that's 60 to 70% native. And we asked for the wildlife pollinators to be included. You know, everything that was asked for was done. And I think that, I just think we would be looked upon poorly if we choose to keep beating this dead horse. I'm pretty happy with the list myself. It's way better than what we had before. Obviously, a lot of work went into it. And I don't see that we're gonna get anywhere if we ask for additional time and money to be spent on this list. I don't see it, guys. Anybody else have any comments?
I do, when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Well, number one, I think it's a easy matter to merge these two together. I think we can remove the things you want to remove. I think we can blend Kimberly's list with the consultant's list. And I think the way that I understand how these plants are beneficial, I think we can incorporate them into the incentive structure that we had originally talked about at the last meeting. So if we include in the list Florida natives that are vouchered in Brevard County, and we include Florida natives that are regional but not vouchered in Brevard County, and we include exotic non-natives that are not found in the federal noxious weed list, the Florida noxious weed list, the Florida prohibited aquatic plant list, and the Florida exotic pest plant councils list, then they can go on the list. But the incentives toward development will only be found in using LID and using native plants and native trees at a maximum of an 80% level. And I think that's what we should propose as a commission going forward for this list. I think all of the metadata that's in here that Kim included is outstanding and should not be lost by any means. This stuff is most useful to architects, landscape architects in particular, for choosing the right kind of plant to go on the right kind of soil. It's just not found in our list in our tech manual. And I think this one is far superior as far as a resource goes. And so I would say at a minimum, we need to merge these two lists and give credence where it's due, and that is in the planting of natives going forward. That's what I'd like to see happen.
Yeah, I agree with Michael, and I'd like to second that. And, I'd like to say that at this point, I think we can accept what's been done with the proviso that we're going to take it and merge this information. We don't need any help to do this. We don't need to spend any more money to do this. I think we should accept, since this whole thing is just going around in circles, and take it on our own to do what we think needs to be done.
I do have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Member Delgado.
Thank you. This is about the code that was spoken to, that if we take out these 4 or 5 palms that are going to die anyway eventually because of browning, that somehow the math is going to go against planting of trees. They can still put these palms in if they want. So therefore, the tree count that you talked about, Brad, doesn't matter. We're going to get trees out of it. No matter what, whether you plant this palm or that other palm, they're going to get, there'll be credit for so many trees, correct? You talked about credits. They will get so many credits for a certain amount, for a certain type of palm. The code you said.
Let me
As a math, that's what I'm trying to understand.
understand. So I saved that segment of the code that I was referring to onto Agenda Star. If you can, just minimize your agenda that you have on your screen, and you'll see an icon in your desktop called Agenda Star. You double-click that, that's a file, open it up, and you'll see a PDF document called 30-322. If you need our assistance opening that up, please tell us. We'll come around and show you real quick. But basically, I just gave you an excerpt of what the code says. That's the table I was referring to earlier in the discussion.
I guess I don't know what I'm looking for.
We'll come up now.
Yeah.
There's agenda star and agenda that's a star.
It's the agenda that's the star. The other one says agenda share.
You got it. Yeah, you got it.
File name was it?
Thank you.
That table is what I was referring to.
Okay.
So it tells us that if someone wants to utilize one of those palms that are there, they can put one Canary Island date palm, and that'll equate to one tree. 2 Washington palms will equate to one tree, and 3 cabbage palms will equate to one tree. And that helps us implement the landscape requirements as far as minimum landscaping materials and such.
So a lot of the palms that are on this proposed list are not included in this ordinance. And if you take out the Chinese fan palm and the Pindo palm and whatever else, you're not going to have very many palms left. So is that your point?
I'm just pointing out to you what the code says. If you want to make a recommendation to make modifications to this, right now what's before you is to accept or make modifications to the list that Shimon has proposed to you. If you want to include a recommendation to City Council to make further changes to the code, based on your recommendations on this list, it could impact how we implement this table that I just showed you. So then maybe you might want to make a separate recommendation to City Council.
That's exactly
Member-
where I was going.
Member Yount has had his light on. Let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah, just in a couple of brief websites I just looked at from Gainesville, it's apparently spreading quite rapidly through cabbage palms there. And if there's a third way, if we don't want to take them off the list, which I think we should probably do, but if we don't want to take them off, they're recommending an inspection, that they be inspected and certified to be disease-free before they can be sold and planted, and that would be a middle way to do it. If it didn't require amending code and everything else, we could perhaps recommend that these could be planted if they are certified to be disease-free. But I mean, that's just for the middle ground. I'm in favor of removing them because I don't want to recommend a disease that's going to spread things to natives, as was said.
Yeah, I mean, they could be disease-free, but if they get exposed by another tree, then the only way, you can't stop it. You know, if you have a tree that's next to a tree that has the lethal bronzing, your only choice to try and save your tree is it has to have monthly, like shots, monthly injections for the rest of that tree's life. And it's like $35 a bottle. And you got to drill holes in the tree. And so the process of trying to save the trees that get exposed to this is very expensive and very time consuming. And so again, I agree with you. It makes no sense to include these in the list. And if we got to change the whatever this is, the ordinance, then we need to change the ordinance. I mean, just because it's in the ordinance doesn't make it right.
We can make it follow through.
we can follow it up, but,
You want that as a separate recommendation instead of what we're talking about now? Or
It could be included as one recommendation of how you want to amend this list.
are there any
That-
other
that she-
places that follow through where specifics are specified elsewhere in our ordinances that actually should be in this tree list by reference instead, maybe?
I'm not aware of anything else, but
Well, one of the things that makes me question this approach, I realize you're trying to get more palms for one tree, and that's why we went with 3 sable and everything else seems to be 2, except for the Canary Island date palm, which is as big. But why, if we're not wanting to promote palm trees for canopy in the first place, why would we even want this in our ordinance at all?
So speaking from the consultant side, there are often times where our plans don't necessarily allow for us to plant a canopy tree. We don't have the room. Let's say if a parking island isn't 10 feet big, it's only 5. We don't want to plant a red maple or an oak there, so we plant 3 sable palms because they have shallower roots and it'll actually grow better. So that's why we believe that the list is this way. And it also allows for plant diversity because you don't want to have a monoculture of just a bunch of canopy trees all over the site when you're so close to what we would consider a tropical environment. So you want to have cabbage palms and native palms that are on your site. So we don't necessarily take that approach of, okay, I'm going to do 3 cabbage palms for 1 tree. We only do that in times of when it's absolutely necessary because oftentimes 3 cabbage palms turns into 6, 9, 12, 15. And if we're looking for a certain size, it can be more expensive than just planting that 1 live oak tree. So we do it because oftentimes we need to, but it's there to help us meet our overall code requirements as well.
So something like a Norfolk Island pine is not acceptable in that same footprint?
Typically, our developers don't want to have pine trees because they are messy. They would rather have an oak or a cabbage palm. And I don't think you would want to have a pine tree in a parking island either.
Well, pick and choose. Well, where do we go? Shall we make a motion? Someone make a motion. All right. Then I will make the same motion I made before, that I think that we should merge the lists together and that we should document within that list those that are vouchered Brevard County native plants and that those that are native regional, which are not vouchered in Brevard County, but found in the Atlas of Florida Native Plants. And include those non-native, how did I put it? Non-native exotics that are not found in the noxious weed lists of Florida or the federal list or the Florida Prohibited Aquatic Plant List or the Florida Exotic Plant Council's plant list, which is updated regularly and should be checked yearly. Those are what I think we should end up with as a recommended native plant, as a recommended plant list for our engineering plan. And any ordinances that refer to this list should also be updated accordingly. And if there's a friendly amendment to remove the palm trees, I'll hear that in addition to my motion.
Is that
Okay.
your motion?
Okay, you can second the motion, but the motion is too long.
long.
It's too long. You have to make it short and simple.
Merge the 2 lists together and call it good. Is that?
That's better.
That's
That's
better?
So in doing so.
And make sure there's no no invasive noxious plants on it.
Okay, first of all, we've had a motion made by Member Myjack, seconded by Member Perez, and it's being whittled down now. So in merging the 2 lists, somebody, and you're proposing that it would be us?
We merged the 2 lists. Consider the 2 lists merged less the palm trees you didn't want. That's the motion.
But you also wanted to identify the plants that are
We can get-
found in Brevard County. Can you do that by just adding another little column, like you have the native, could you?
Yep.
Yeah, put another
Native
column
regional.
that says Brevard County
Yep.
and have a yes or a no there. I mean, because we want to keep this simple. It
Yep.
has to be simple, or
Yep.
people are not going to be able to use it.
You can
And-
have a B for Brevard. You can have an, regional, for an R for regional native, and you can have an X for exotics. How about that? All in one column. And I only use 3 letters. Easy peasy. We want a good list of natives to source from, and that's what we want to end up with, so.
So could we modify this existing list by just adding a B next to the plants that are on here that grow in Brevard County rather than going through the work of
And
trying
all
to-
of the rest of the ones that Kim has that are not on that list. You see, that's what you're missing, is the additional ones that Kim has identified that actually belong here in this county that are not on that list. Not that that list is not good, but this one is more complete. So how are we hurting ourselves by pulling in the plants that literally were here before we were? And saying, that's what we should be planting, and that's the one that I want to give the highest value to. And that's everything that's on her list. So if we merge Kim's list and the Native Plant Society's approach with what the consultant has done, then we have even more native plants to choose from. And I see that as a win-win. Now, if we subtract from the consultant's list the palm trees that you're objecting to, and I don't really have a problem with that, then we're taking and merging them together, sans those 4 palms, or 5 palms, or whatever it was. And that's still a win-win, because we still end up with more native plants. So what's wrong with that?
Member Yap?
Yeah, how many plants are we talking here? That was my first question. I have 2.
Can we explain with, Shima has some response to the list that was provided by the resident versus what she came up with.
All right,
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the
Sheila.
list that was provided, I believe we had gotten before. And so we used that list in conjunction with the list that we created to compile them both with what we found on IFAS and on the Florida Native Plant Society. And so we have all of these plants on our list. What we probably don't have are the aquatic species, because that was something that we did not have on the list before. But when it comes to for the understory, the canopy, the shrubs, the perennials, we merged both of those lists already. So if there are lists such as the herbaceous flowering plants, there may be some on there that we don't specifically have, or the aquatics, because that wasn't necessarily originally on the first list that we were told to modify. There was like 4 or 5 groupings that we were told needed to be in the landscape technical manual, and we stuck to those. We didn't go with the aquatics or herbaceous. We were just told overstory, understory, vines, palms, shrubs, ground cover. That's it. So that's what we did. So if there are aquatic species, we can go back and merge those on the list, but we didn't originally have those because that wasn't on the original landscape technical manual that we were to update.
Okay, but you understand the significance of this list is that every one of these are vouchered to be found in this county.
They're also on our list.
Well, we just got the list updated 3 days ago, so unless you've merged it recently, it's not current.
This list there was a list that we got before, and so we used that list then to create this list, so
So merging this current list that we just got from Kim with what you have will bring you up to date.
it's the same list that we got before.
No, ma'am, it is not. That's what I'm telling you. It just came out 3 days ago and was mailed to us all by email. You do not have the current list incorporated in yours.
To see.
But
Okay.
I'm offering you the advantage of taking this Excel spreadsheet and merging it with yours so that we have it all included. I just want to be able to document these as having been vouchered native in Brevard County, so that when we sort this list and we look for it, we can pull out those that are actually native. And we can give those additional credit when we get to the incentives part of this discussion later on.
I think what you're saying is maybe instead of saying native, because that's what we were talked about last time, was that we were that it was told just to be
I am
native.
distinguishing between Florida native.
Now you are, but
I am
but
now.
before.
Before I was not.
So now
I've
you
learned,
cannot.
And we've learned.
Exactly. So, but we were told that it was supposed to only be 9B and 10A.
Right.
So the list,
I
so the
agree.
list can be
And
merged.
that was 2 months ago.
That was last month.
Well,
We're in
that
March.
was a month before.
It was February.
Well,
I remember.
either way, seems like 2 months ago. There's been so much work.
But either way, we can merge the list because now we understand that, okay, on the list, you want it to be regional native and Brevard County native.
Yes, document
And
the
that was told to us just now.
Yes, I
So-
understand. That's going to be the essence of the motion that we've made.
Understood.
So that once we have those documented and we know what's native here in Brevard County, we can compare them to those that are not native and those that are non-Floridian, non-native at all, what am I trying to say, exotics. Regionals, natives, local, and exotics. I just want to divide the three.
So you were asking then, because I've heard several versions of the motion change over time, so from what I understand,
Merge Kim's list with the consultant's list, sans the palm trees that Laura Lee didn't want. That's the motion. And if you document those that come from Kim's list as being vouchered native in Brevard County instead of just native like they are in the document that she sent, then when you merge them, you'll be able to distinguish those that are regional native from those that are Brevard County native.
so let me understand. So we're updating this list from Ms. Leroy here with additional plantings from the list that was given to us on Tuesday by
Ms. Kim Gibbs,
Kim Gibbs.
yes, just merge them together.
Merge them together, add another column to identify each species based on whether it's,
You see the column that she has in hers? Can you pull hers up at the very top? I think it's her column D. She has listed as Brevard native status. Okay, and it's either yes or no in those columns. In Kim's list, those are all native because they're all Brevard native. Now, what we could do is change the status of that heading to incorporate Brevard native or regional native or non-native. In other words, 3 different letters in the same column. I'm just saying make better use of what's there.
so the motion is to combine both of these.
Incorporate Kim's Florida Native Plant Society Brevard Native Plant List
Okay,
into the consultant's list so that we can differentiate which are Brevard County natives and which are regional natives and which are non-natives.
so but then the other part of your motion is to add a column identifying what is Brevard native.
Use what's in Kim's
So use what's in here,
spreadsheet.
not create
Use
something.
Kim's spreadsheet. She's got more metadata in here than you have in the 5 columns that you've got in yours.
Full due respect, so we're just trying to figure out exactly the specific wording in your motion, so we understand what the direction is.
So, sorry, so that one column should contain 3 options, correct, Michael?
Yes. Well, you could say 4th if it's,
Oh.
off the list, but 3 should be satisfactory. You need 1 to identify Brevard natives,
B,
could be B.
I like that.
You need a letter to identify Florida regional natives, could be
R.
R. And you need a letter to identify
Exotic.
Florida non-natives or exotics, put an X.
I think that's elegant.
I think that does it, except for the things that shouldn't be on the list, which I've iterated before. So that's what we're looking for, is to try to get the most Brevard native plants in the list and still leave enough that we're not going to make everybody upset so they don't have grass to plant or palms to put up or.
So there's 3 parts to your motion. First is combining 2 as the column with the labeling of whether it's Brevard, Florida regional, or non-native. And then the third part is removing specific vegetation, specifically the palms that Ms. Thompson mentioned. Can you repeat which specific vegetation that you would like, recommending to be removed?
Yes, that would be pindo palm, Chinese fan palm, date palms, which is Phoenix species, which I really, I have a question about, the Senegal date palm and the pygmy date palm. Those are both Phoenix species, so should they be included too? I don't know how to answer that. But the other specific one is a windmill palm.
We have a biologist on this team.
So, yeah, specifically the 4 that are absolutely identified as being susceptible to lethal bronzing are the Pindo, Chinese fan palm, date palm species, and the windmill palm.
But that is to take it out of the code. If we don't take it out of the code, that architect is gonna look at the code, says, here's the code.
I think we need to
And she
make a
just explained
separate,
how the palms are get to instead of a tree, and the whole thing has been a conversation.
but I think we can do that in a separate motion and not try to conglomerate it in with this motion.
I'm not, the administrative part, that's not my thing. But at the end of the day, what I look for is, what are we asking the people that are making the decisions to plan this or that? Okay, and that is where I want to be clear. If indeed the code is going to supersede this list, I hate to say that, okay, and you guys can hate me later on. But the code will supersede this. So we got to be realistic as to how we do this. And if we allow things in the code that we're not in favor of, then we need to flesh them out and make the code work for us, since we get credits for trees, which is at the end what we're after.
Well, this is going to be a separate motion,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
like I
that's
said,
what
the
we said.
administrative-
This is an ordinance change,
So we're
not
just-
what we're recommending for the tree list. So
Yes,
that's a separate motion, I think.
that's my point. Okay.
Okay, so not including them in the merge is one thing. Coming and modifying the ordinance is another thing. So we need to finish with this vote, which is the merger and the less the Pindo, Chinese fan palm, the date palms, and the windmill palm are merged into one plant list for our engineering manual. And then we'll get to this issue next.
So why don't we leave them in during the merge and then do a separate motion that would remove them and change them in the,
What
and
put-
remove them from
Well,
the,
then we have to go back and make another motion to remove them from the plant list, because we're talking about the plant list right now, not the ordinance. We have to keep them separate. So let's not put them in the plant list, and let's take them out of the ordinance so that it's done.
so do we need one motion that removes them from the plant list?
Well,
and
it's
keep it
part of the
simple?
motion that I made. We're
Well, why-
merging Kim's list with the city consultant's list,
Mm-hmm.
sans those palms, sans the Pindo, Chinese fan palm, the date palms, and the windmill palm. Those don't get merged forward.
Okay,
That's our list. That's the motion that's on the table right now.
In addition to the extra labeling of whether it's native, Florida regional native, or not.
Brevard native,
I'm sorry,
regional native,
Brevard.
yeah, right,
Okay.
yes, and including that. That's the motion that's on the table.
member Yap?
Yeah, just a question. Did I hear somebody say earlier that they're allowed to plant things that are not on the list?
This is the recommended list.
This is the educator in me. If we take those palms that are susceptible to the bronzing off the list, then there's no notation about the bronzing. I mean, technically cabbage palms get bronzing too, but we're not talking about taking those off the list. Wouldn't it be better to leave them on the list that everyone's going to look at with a stronger notation that these carry this disease and it is not a great idea? Because that way a developer doesn't say, I like Chinese fan palms, doesn't say anything about them here, so I'll just put them in. But this way we are communicating to people that these trees have a problem. By removing them, we will remove that educational mode. So maybe we should leave them, but with a stronger footnote, that at this time, it's not a great idea to plant these because they are spreading disease.
How about when we get to talking about this motion in the future, that we note that educational piece with the cabbage palm? Because the cabbage palm is also susceptible, but it's a native in Brevard County. So that one I don't really want to take off the list. But that's where your educational moniker would go, and it would then highlight whatever palms you want that are, affecting this disease, the spread of this disease. Even if they're not on the list, we can add that as a footnote or something.
So I'm sorry to muddy the water.
That's okay.
I'm a professor, it's what I do.
That's why you're here.
So then that would modify your, that would
no.
then modify your.
No,
your-
because that has to do with the ordinance. We're not dealing with the ordinance yet. We're still dealing with the plant list. We're trying to get that vote forward so we can,
Yeah, but your
move to the-
original motion included removing the,
my original motion included not incorporating these palms in the merger of the two documents. We're still talking about the plant list. Let's not lose focus.
Can I make a recommendation that we have one motion that involves the merging and the column? And get that done, because I think there's not a lot of debate on that. And then we have a second motion about what to do with what's included, just to, because this is really getting garbled.
yeah.
All right, then all right. If I'm going to withdraw it and restate it, Tom, is that okay? Yeah. All right. Sorry it's taking so long. Go back to the, I'm going to make the motion that we start with Kim's Brevard native plant list. And we merge into Kim's Brevard native plant list, the plant list from the consultant. That way, the consultant's list will show up integrated with this and be distinguishable from the Brevard native list, because the column formats won't be filled in exactly the same. So it'll be easy to manipulate the spreadsheet to figure out what's Brevard native, what's regional native. Duplicates will easily be called out. So it's a simple spreadsheet manipulation if we simply merge the consultant's list into Kim's list, sans the Pindo, fan, date palms, plural, and windmill. Oh, you want to do the palms separate? I wasn't going to merge them into the list right from the beginning. The separate was the ordinance part. This is just creating the list. I don't want them going into the list. That's what I'm trying to stop. All right? So I'll say it again. We're going to start with Kim's list. We're going to merge the consultant's list into her spreadsheet using her columns. And then we can determine which ones are duplicates. We'll know which ones are non-Brevard natives because they'll be listed as natives in the consultant's list. And we remove the fan palm, the Chinese fan palm, the Pindo palm, the date palms, and the windmill palm. That gives us a list of these two merged together and in a columnar format that'll be easy to manipulate afterwards so that we can get a unique merger without duplicates. Do you understand that, Brad? Is that good enough?
I think I understand, however, there's an issue with it.
Okay, what's that?
So City Council's direction, their original direction was to utilize the format that we have as far as structure of our listing.
Okay, so you
Format
really
in
need
this-
that column. Okay.
Well, no, it's not about the column. If you go to
Yeah,
the agenda,
right.
you'll see how the plantings are grouped from the beginning. We start with, let me go back to the top here. So on page 11 of your packet, you'll see overstory trees. That's the first column. The first grouping, rather.
Right.
And then further down, you'll see understory trees and so on and so on. There's a reason for that grouping, and that's consistent. That's so that we can implement this consistent with the requirements of the landscape code and our code.
Okay, so you have right now a column for native, right? and you just have yes or no, right? So yes could become Brevard native and native, regional native. right?
Sure, so with your other motion where it said the reverse would take.
We scrapped
Ms.
that. I'm
Gibbs.
trying to get to what's gonna
Yeah.
work for you for this. So would it be better to merge Kim's into this column format?
That would be more consistent with what council has asked.
Okay.
Yeah. As
Can
far as
we-
maintaining the structure.
Do I have to say something about changing this column of native versus yes, no, and versus Brevard regional or none?
Well, if we go back to your original motion, which had three parts. First part said, merge Kim's into.
Yes, the
The
consultant.
consultants. And then the second part was add the column and identify by three codes, whether it's Brevard native, Florida, regional native,
Right.
or not.
Right,
And then the third part is what Mr. Yount was suggesting, not including in this motion, and that was removing the listed palms and dealing with that as a separate motion. So if we go back to your original motion, you only have those first two parts. Combine them together and add that column with the,
well, you don't need to add the column if you redevelop the way you're using the native column now.
correct, yeah, yes, now I
Okay.
follow you.
So if you do that, then I don't have to add that as part of the motion, right? Is that understood, or do I have to,
Well,
because it's a change, you need a part of the motion?
well, the current list has it listed as, or the proposed list has it as native, yes or no.
Yeah.
What you had in your original motion was that column would
Yes.
state B, R, or X. B,
Right.
Brevard native, R, Florida regional native, and X, non-Florida.
Right.
Is that still correct?
Yeah, that would work fine in this column right here where you have native.
Okay, so your
You want me to
motion.
say it in the motion or not? That's what I'm asking.
Well, let me state your motion, maybe you concur? We can do it that way? All right, so your motion, from what I understand, and everyone just please tell me if I'm incorrect, is to merge Ms. Kim Gibbs' list into the consultant's list, update the native column in the consultant's list with the following codes, whether the vegetation is Brevard native, B, Florida regional native, R, or Florida non-native, X.
Right. Kim's list would all be Brevard regional or Brevard native. And I would assume that anything that's in the consultant's list that's not on Kim's list would ultimately be a regional native. Because Kim's list is all vouchered to be in Florida, in our county. Yeah,
If that's your motion, it's approved, we'll go forward and verify and make sure that's updated correctly.
okay, all
accordingly.
right. And then the removal of the four,
Yep.
of the palm trees, the 6 palms, that's part of the motion as well. That they not be part of that merge.
Okay, no.
You want that as a separate motion?
No, if you want that in your motion, that's fine. That's what you originally stated as part 3 of your motion. However, Mr. Yount suggested not doing that. Then you decided to amend your motion to remove that, and then you said, add the consultant's list into Ms. Kim Gibbs' list, and then add this, make consistent with her structure or format, and then removing palms.
Yeah, we've bounced back and forth. The question
Yes.
is, which way do you want it to go? It seems like from the columnar format, you suggested it would be better to merge Kim's list into the consultant's list because the columnar structure matches what you need. Okay, that's fine. That's the basis of the motion, as long as we remove the 6 palm trees.
Okay, so we're keeping part 3 of your original motion in your motion then, so we're not
Yes.
making any changes?
Yes, because the part that Jim was talking about had to do with the ordinance, changing the ordinance, and I was gonna make that a separate motion. If we take them out of the approved plant list, then they have to be removed from the ordinance too. I'm sorry, then I missed.
A separate motion about removing this list.
Oh, you want to discuss the palm tree separately? Is that, okay, okay, all right. I'm game, I'm,
just trying to make this motion doable, because this is,
I thought I would.
well, it's been about half an hour now clarifying it, so I just wish we could get something done.
Let's keep it simple, you know?
One at a time.
Yeah. So I think Brad had finally stated what we're going to do, Okay, for the first motion.
All right, let's merge
We
them.
merge and we modify
All right.
modify that column, and he knows exactly what's going to go in it from everything he said.
Okay.
And we'll move on from there.
Great.
Second.
Okay.
And does the secretary understand the motion?
Now, your light is on?
Oh, sorry.
No, okay. So we have a motion to merge
You understand? Okay.
this list in with the consultants list and modify the column that right now is it has yes or no, and it's the native column. Modify that column to indicate whether a plant is from Brevard for a B, regional native for an R, or X for a non-native. Yeah, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion is approved unanimously. All right, so what do we want to do with the palm trees? I kind of agree with Member Yount, you know, that if we take them out, then they could use them anyway, at least by putting them in here, leaving them in here with this very strong language that it might be.
Why would you leave them in the plant list if you don't recommend them? I mean, this is a list of recommended plants, right?
I think Jan's point was to educate. Okay, people are going to say, well, gee, this isn't on here. This is something that we've been using for years and years and years. Why not? You know, I like that plant. Let's put it in. This way, you know, it's in there. It's labeled or maybe even colored in red. You know, that tells you, you know, what it is educationally that you should know about it, that it's going to kill the rest of your plants or whatever.
I just have a hard time recommending something that's not recommended. I would make a motion that we take the fan palm, the Chinese fan palm, the Pindo palm, the 3-date palms, and the windmill palm out of our recommended list of palms.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Okay.
Getting there. We're not. What are we gonna do with the code?
That's next. That's next. That's next.
What are we gonna do with the code?
That's next.
Okay. Because if you don't, then it was a
Right,
great
so
exercise.
the motion is to remove Pindo palm, Chinese fan palm, date palm phoenix species, Senegal date palm, pygmy date palm, and windmill palm from our list of recommended palms. The canary is not in there, but we can remove the canary when we get to the ordinance. Okay, so we had a motion by Member Myjack and seconded by Member Perez. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right, now we deal with the ordinance.
Well, we don't have an explanation of why others are on the list, or didn't make the list.
Right.
All right, so the list is done. Now we gotta go to the ordinance thing. Where is that? There.
I'll do this one. I move that the ordinance be amended to reflect the approved list.
Second.
Will that work?
Second.
Would you handle a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
That we include a footnote on this page about lethal bronzing disease and recommend against, certain palms that are not on the list or something like that, cabbage palms and so. Yeah, there should be something in there that lets people know that when they're thinking about planting these, that they should think twice. Need a second for that, though.
Is there a second?
Second, do you need to identify those specific
Well,
palms?
since the motion basically made this reflect what's in our planting list with palms, it's taken out all the ones that we've just taken out. The one that remains that to me is key is the cabbage palm. And this would be the perfect footnote for that and any of the other palms that are in here to give warning in the future that this may lead to lethal bronzing, particularly if you choose palms that are not on this list. Something like that, is that?
Yeah, I would accept something along that line if we could do that, if such a thing belongs in the ordinance, that as of this date, these particular palms are at risk for bronzing and
therefore have been removed.
and have been removed
Could
and
we
are
do
not
that,
recommended.
Brad? Could we put a footnote like that in here? That
So the motion, what you're suggesting is going to be recommending city council remove these particular palms from that list on table 30-66 rather,
Correct, that was the motion.
and then add a footnote on the bottom of the table saying that these particular palms that have been removed and list them out are lethal or
Yes.
susceptible to lethal bronzing.
lethal
Right.
bronzing disease.
Yeah.
You can make that recommendation.
Yeah, if they don't like it, they don't like it, but I think it would be,
I agree.
well, if the disease goes away, we take it out, we put the palms back.
Magic, yes.
That still leaves Canary Island date palm and European fan palm, both of which are susceptible to lethal bronzing.
Should they be on the list too?
Well, if we only adhere to the list, to keep it in line with the list the vote we just made, that would take out Pindo, Pygmy, Senegal, Chinese fan, but it would leave European fan palm and Canary Island date palm.
Well, you said to remove the Phoenix palms. The Canary Island date palm is Phoenix carinensis.
It is, yeah, that's true.
So that should be gone.
Yeah. I mean, they've identified 27 palms now.
Yeah.
It's up to 27 or more palms that are highly susceptible to lethal bronzing. It doesn't leave a lot of popular landscape palms left.
Right. Back to canopy trees.
Yeah. Canopy trees and cabbage palms.
They suck up more water anyway and get rid of stormwater and, anyway.
All right.
There's a motion on the table. We should call the question.
Can you repeat your motion?
Really?
Actually, it was Member Yount's motion, wasn't it? Yeah.
That the ordinance list be updated to reflect the accepted list we approved tonight, and that a notation be placed that these palms were removed because of bronzing, and
More may follow.
yep, that's it.
Right, the motion was made by Member Yount and seconded by Member Tucker. All those in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, great. Sheena, thank you for all your hard work. Looks like
Thank you.
it's the gift that keeps on giving. But we appreciate it. We appreciate you and all that you've been doing, and we appreciate Brad and all of your patience.
I also would like to thank Kimberly and those others that were behind us. It made it that much better.
Kimberly and Ken. Okay, moving down the agenda, we're on to the environmental impact of Cumberland Farms. Jesse, are you going to speak, or who's speaking? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Wright, 3550 South Washington Avenue. I'm assuming everyone has a packet. I'd like to start off by discussing the first packet, which is just a, then I'll discuss the pictures separately. And if I can ask for 10 minutes instead of 5, that would be fabulous.
You guys okay with 10 minutes instead of 5? That way we don't have to interrupt him in the middle and have to give him more time?
So
You guys
moved.
all right with that? Okay.
I'll try to be quick. So on this first page, basically, this is coming from FDEP, and they do basically indicate that this leak has been ongoing, and it's also in the groundwater. If you can note the code 62780, which is basically the code that they've been hiding, the Cumberland, is basically what the point of the discussion is tonight. If you could turn to the second page, it's a picture of Cumberland. And if you see the blue line, that is the area where we have a electric line coming in from Hopkins. So obviously they cannot drill there. You see two yellow portion. I was wondering, there should be extra packet. I was wondering if Brad can have that one, or Abigail. If there's an extra one, I only brought enough. No, I have one. I just wanted to make sure you have it. Yeah. Okay. So the two yellow line basically indicates that the flow of the contamination is going more towards the north and is coming towards the mall. And those are the wells that they put in. That's the second page. If you go to the third page, you'll see this is a sample of the geological that was done in the property. And you can see on the top left where Cumberland is, you see the ground. This is a groundwater table. These are basically the groundwater as you see on the property, ranging from 3.5 feet all the way to 5 feet. And the next page is just a couple of pages this is the latest report that they sent me. And again, on there, you will see the rule 62780 and my comments there. And this is basically a point of discussion tonight. I'll discuss that in just a couple of minutes. If you would please turn into the pictures now. These are the pictures that I've provided. The first picture basically shows where Cumberland is. All the yellow lines are the areas that they've been drilling. And as you can see in this portion, that's almost about 2.5 to maybe even 3 or 4 acres. If you go to the next page, these are the barrels that has been sitting there on the Cumberland gas station. I assume, I've asked them what these things are, and they have refused to answer. I assume these are the chemicals that they were planning on injecting to the ground. I'm just referring to these barrels that you see on the second page. I have not got a response, and I have CC'd you and the City Council on these communications directly with the Cumberland, Kelfler there, and also the FDEP. If you look at the third page, you will see a picture of a existing well that was closed, and then they opened up another one right next to it. Now, I don't know nothing about any of this, but my common sense tells me, why would you want to close a well and then open up another one right next to it within 2 feet? So if you think that's stupid, let's go to the next page. Now, why would you want to have 2 wells right next to each other within 2 feet? I don't get that. So those are what is already in your packet. Now, I do have two clips of audio. If you like, I'd like to play it. The very first one does say that they have not used what they call OVA, which is Organic Vapor Analyzer. I'm sure you know that, Mr. Delgado. And this is what they use to measure the hydrocarbon vapor from the ground. They've never used it. So one of the video does mention that. And the second, the audio. The second audio is the attorney that basically says, I don't know why FDEP or us, we have not found the source. I mean, this is an attorney that came to the picture representing the Cumberland Farm. This is after another attorney that came into the picture about 6-7 months ago. So basically switching attorneys over and over again. If I'm allowed to play those audios, I'd be happy to do that. It's less than about a minute, maybe even 50 seconds on each side. Otherwise, I can continue. Okay.
I think we can go ahead and get started. Mr. Wright, as you know, we went out there a few weeks ago. We took some sampling data from the groundwater wells. We wanted to share with you the sampling data that we had. And so I think, Mike, are you able to share your screen? Let me authorize it real quick.
Oh, good. Mike is, so Mike is on the, okay, it's on this call. Okay. I met Mike Kelly in person. Okay, good.
Yeah, so go ahead and share your screen, Mike, and we can go through the data.
All right. Okay, good. That's Michael. Okay. Step in the right direction.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes, I can.
All right, so we were out in February and put in these 9 additional wells. There were these 2 wells were already there, 12R and 42, and we put in these other wells, 43 through 50. So what these wells are, we went from the area where benzene was above the cleanup level, and we went in the kind of presumed down gradient direction to find the end of it, and then we went cross gradient as well for the same reason, to get the extent of it defined. So right up by the site, we had 10.9 benzene, and for reference, the cleanup level for groundwater is 1. So it's not quite at the cleanup level, but it's close. These 2 cross gradient wells.
I'd like to go to the second video, which the attorney on Cumberland side basically says that no one actually looked for a source. I mean, this is like 20 years now. If I may, please.
Excuse me a
Yes,
second. I'm assuming you had permission to record this.
I did not. I did not.
That makes me uncomfortable.
I'd like to continue, if I may.
Can you explain to us, what was in the audios?
Yes, what I was trying to ascertain was why are they continuing going towards the mall and going towards the US 1 on the first video. The second audio has to do with the fact that the new attorney that is just joined in this whole mess is simply asking the team, which is the, you see the letter that I gave you the copy of, Kleinfelder, I cannot pronounce it, as to has anyone looked for the source? Michael is the person that is new in the project that is running the operation right now. So it really is interesting, and I asked the question of why FDEP is continuing giving extension year after year. If they put in the chemical into the ground, which I don't want them to do, then what happens is they would want another 1 year of extension. I asked, well, can you not get the result in 6 months? They said, no, we need 1 year of extension. So I'm not really wanting to give them any more extension. I've asked them why you have not put in, if I may ask for another 5 minutes, please. I asked them on this picture, why have you not put in wells in the area where the residential areas are? Why the wells was not put in near the residential by the river? Why have you not used the OVA to measure if there's any gas coming out of the ground? Why have you not done all that? And why FDEP is continuing to give extension and taking my rights away to develop this part of the project? I'm not able to get loan to do this portion, which is a phase 2, simply because I cannot get a no further action letter from FDEP. FDEP is really being a referee here in a way, but basically they're saying, well, it's between you and Cumberland. If you have a referee in any kind of a game, any kind of a basketball, football, or whatever, you should be able to let each side know what they can or cannot do. The word progress to me means nothing. This is not progress if every year this is going to continue. I don't know what they mean by the word. So long as they're having progress, we're going to continue giving them extension. That's just not right, especially when they don't consult with the property owner to see what it is that we want to do, acting as a proxy for the property owner that is doing that. So I'm concerned about my development, and I'm also concerned about the residential on the north side, and I'm also concerned about the residential on US 1. I live at 3541 South Washington Avenue. I have a house there and also a condo. I'm also a recipient as one of the residents that is concerned. Sometimes I go out to the river and I see the river is being very murky. Stan talked about the sewage being disposed there, and I'm really worried about what is all this coming in. The fact is, the contamination is in a pocket below the ground up to about 14, 15 feet. It is already in the groundwater. Why don't you get the damn bulldozer, take the whole damn thing out, replace it, and we'd be done with it. They have the deep pocket to do that. And that's basically the whole case. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
This is under FDEP remediation, right?
Yes, sir.
So what, I'm not sure, that's a state level. And I'm not sure what we can do from the city's perspective to help. I mean, I fully appreciate and understand, and I agree with you, the citizens to the north and possibly the other side of US 1. I mean, I don't, if they haven't done any wells out there, then we really don't know if it's just moving to the east. It could be going in several different directions.
That's a good question. My response to that is, this is also your city as well. You know, we can't allow an entity like this. If they're doing it here, they're probably doing it other places too. Excuse me. So in reality, are we just going to let FDEP run the show and keep on giving him the extension? My voice is not enough to be able to make an impact. And at the same time, I'm considering suing both the FDEP and also Cumberland. This is going to take a lot of years. But in the meantime, the people that are live in that area, they have really, they did nothing to deserve this. And I'm really concerned. I mean, I know most of these neighbors. I've been here, excuse me again, I've been here since 2017, since Hurricane Irma came through when I purchased them all. And I've gone around and met all the neighbors, and I cannot see this is going to continue having an impact for the groundwater that is in the pocket. So I'm merely asking for the city to be involved.
I just don't understand in what capacity. I would love to be able to help, but I'm not sure how.
Could we make a recommendation as the Environmental Commission that wells be installed in the areas where the homes are, to the north and to the east?
To protect the citizens
To
around
pro-
the area?
to- yeah, and at the
To
same-
determine the extent of the damage?
Well, to protect, obviously, we'd find out everything else as well. But I think that would be prudent for us as the Environmental Commission to make that recommendation to the city. Look into having some knowledge as to how much contamination, if any, is affecting our neighborhoods to the north and to the east.
10.9 parts benzene, that's up there. That's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma somewhere, you know, in somebody's drinking water.
Well, they should know.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would think that first, what we maybe ought to do is get information from the city, to request maybe a one sheet as to what the city's awareness is of this problem and what, if any, steps they're taking to address it. And once we have that information, then we could maybe better make a recommendation, because we don't really know what they're doing or what they know or anything that's going on yet.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I'm surprised that that kind of information isn't coming forth, considering, you know, the topic at hand and this individual coming forward with this information. Shouldn't we know or have been privileged to have that information from the city if it did exist?
Yeah.
So, I mean, my premise was, well, we don't have that information.
Right.
And therefore, let's get that, or let's make the recommendation to get that information.
Brad, do you have anything you could report to us on this? You've obviously been working with
So-
this gentleman.
Yeah, I can give you some information. So at your last meeting, you had asked what the city can do. And so we thought we would speak with code enforcement. So we sent to you an email on February 23rd with the following statement from the code enforcement department. It says, according to code enforcement staff, the spill referred to by Mr. Wright is still under the jurisdiction of FDEP. The case with notes is available online. They were out there last week checking the area. The report of spill using 3.11 of the city's code, which is he attached in the email and I also sent to you, would only be in effect for anything that after October 2016. Even with that, it falls to the fire department for inspection and follow-up. The gas station across the street is also being monitored by them. The only code involvement was with the permit for tank replacements in 2001 through 2004 and landscaping in 2006 and again in 2013. Outside of that, we don't have any additional information on this. So again, this is still, as stated before, it appears that this is strictly a state case.
What did I hear you say about the involvement of the fire department? Is that what you said?
They stated in the email to me that that the code that we have in place right now would become effective, would be utilized for anything that happened after 2016, and the fire department would be involved in part of that inspection.
You do understand, this has been going on since 1983. It's been 41 years. I mean.
Yeah, I
in reality,
realize that. And we
it's-
don't have a better solution than waiting. I'm not happy with that.
And, you know, when an attorney on behalf of Cumberland comes out and says, let me check to see if they have done anything at the source, it means she doesn't know anything about any of this stuff. It is cheaper for Cumberland to keep paying $700-800 an hour attorney fees than having to dig this up, replace it, and we move on. Be a good neighbor. Now, city's voice would be very, very important to me because in reality, I'm just one voice. We send out multiple takes towards social media and talk of Titusville. I'm really surprised there's not as many neighbors here tonight, and I don't think they even know what's going on. If you don't know what's going on, then of course, and then of course, the other thing is the OVA. I mean, it's, don't you want to, at least not you, but I mean them, don't they want to know if there is a fume coming out of the ground? And maybe it is. And can FDEP just run the show and the city just is just passing the buck?
Brad, we are the Water Resources Board. I would think that that would give us some oversight to our groundwater resources as well, would it not?
I can only respond to what your duties are according to the code.
It seems like at the very least, we should make a recommendation to city council to look into resolving this issue. It's been going on for far too long. I mean,
Yeah, I agree
I
with.
don't know what else we can do to get this ball rolling.
Yeah, and I think, the premise should be the safety of the citizen.
That's right.
Okay,
Perhaps the city could go and inspect some of the ground
yeah,
water around that area
regardless of who is supposed to be
in charge.
in charge, I think we have a responsibility to our citizens.
Things have stagnated for far too long.
I thought I had a copy of our duties with me, but apparently I left it at home. But you're right, we are the Water Resources Board, and I don't see why we can't make a recommendation to the city council that they send some kind of a strong letter to DEP, asking why this continues to go on and what can be done about it.
Well, maybe even a little more proactively to say, hey, we want to know what to tell our citizens, and,
Are they safe living across the street?
or what precautions do they need to take,
Right. So how would we word it?
Member Yount has his light on.
That we could, that we as the TEC make a recommendation to the city that for the safety of the citizens near this plume, that all efforts to investigate be expedited. We could make that recommendation, because they're already on it, kind of. But we as the Environmental Commission certainly sympathize with the business angle of it. But in terms of health and safety of everyone concerned, we would recommend that this be expedited.
The resolution of it be expedited.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Chairwoman, we had one more card on this item.
Call the next card.
Lisa McCotter.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa McCotter, Country Club Drive. First of all, I want to thank you for what you do to enhance our environment here, not just in this setting, but I've seen you all over the years and been in different meetings, and you really have made a difference. As far as this goes, with our water, we did vote that we wanted clean water in Titusville. I voted that I wanted clean water in Titusville, and I know there are problems with that, but it doesn't negate the fact that that is who we are And that's what we want, not just in the river, but we do want clean drinking water. And I don't live across the street, but I do live across the railroad tracks just a block away. So I don't know if it affects me, but I would really like to know. And I whatever you all can do to really just remediate it or to move towards that would be appreciated. I know not just from me as, you know, being involved with the project or with Jesse, but me as a neighbor and the other neighbors that are around me. So thank you.
Okay, so, can you repeat the motion?
Yeah, I didn't actually state it as a motion, but I will, that the TEC recommend to the city that this matter's resolution be expedited for the safety of the citizens of the surrounding area.
Second, yes.
Second by Randy, okay. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Can I make one more comment?
But it may be relevant to the motion. We would have to suspend the motion and open up the floor again. If we vote on the motion, then. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Do recommendations to city council require a voice vote?
Probably, yeah. Probably a roll call for it.
That's what I meant.
Yes, ma'am.
Member Perez,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Mijak,
Yes.
Member Delgado,
Yes.
Member Yount,
Yes.
Member Kosi,
Yes.
Member Tucker,
Yes.
Chairwoman Thompson.
Yes. Okay, come on back up, Jesse.
This site is about 9 acres, and what is going to be built there mainly is going to be offices, retail, and medical. It happens to be within 20, 30 feet from the senior living that's we're going to be putting in a phase 1. So that's how important this site is. Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Earth Day 2024. At our last meeting, you guys discussed the possibility of having a table or a booth at the Enchanted Forest Earth Day. So if you are still interested in that, we need to probably define what it is that we want. Are there materials that we can hand out to people? I think you said that, remembering out, you said that we've had the table in the past. What did we do at the table in the past?
Well, first of all, I wanted to ask if you'd gotten the email that asked to be forwarded to you, because I'm not sure, it might not be too late to get a place. Did you contact them, or did anyone contact?
The Enchanted Forest?
Yeah.
I can do it. We haven't yet, but I'm on the board there, so I can contact them.
Okay, yeah, because I remember there used to be sort of a deadline, and I thought that I had something forwarded to you. I guess I didn't. But, oh, you did? Okay.
I can make that notification.
Because you have to call, and there's certain allotted sites, and it may be too late. But if it isn't too late, yeah, what we had was a table that folded out. The city provided that, and we had a tent that sat up on 4 big posts, and there was a banner that said City of Titusville. And then we would usually have, I'm not sure what we would have to show this time around, but we would usually have like we used to bring out our bike trail map. We were always planning bike trails back then, so we had the bike trail map. And on the table, we had things that were given away, especially to kids, like little coloring things, that sort of stuff. Right, and colored pencils, and we had, I think one year we had City of Titusville, like drink opener rubber things, just whatever they had. There was like a whole tub of things that they gave us that we could give away. There was just bling at the table and things like that. And again, we had the posters, and then we would talk about stuff. Like we might want to, for example, have like a flyer, if someone puts together a little flyer of like the tree list, or like maybe our semi-annual report. that we could have copies of that page and that we could hand out just to show that what we are doing and things along that line are what we used to do.
Brad, what's our inventory?
Very low. Abby is going to reach out to the Public Works Department and see if they have any particular brochures or anything that they can distribute to us.
There was also stuff about like conserving water and different flyers like that, and
That we could probably find.
things about native plants. In fact, I think we actually might have gotten some stuff from the Native Plant Society, that we used to hand out some of their stuff as well. But there was some logistic issues, like someone had to pick the stuff up from the city the day before, someone with a pickup truck, which I don't have anymore. And so,
Well, we could find what we can and put it in a box. We've done this for other boards and just have that ready for someone to come and pick up.
and usually Eddie would have it, and I would come in my truck and pick it all up. And then I would keep it at my house and take it there that morning, and then we would set it up. And then afterwards, someone would keep it over the weekend and bring it back to the city on Monday morning. And that's how it generally ran. And we would run usually two people. Two people did the morning and two people did the afternoon is how we would usually do it.
Does the city still have that tent, like a 10 by 10 tent?
We need to look for it.
I mean, you
All
can
right.
do without it unless it rains, but it's
It's
usually
nice to
weather.
have shade,
Yeah, it's nice to have
especially when
shade.
you're as old as I am.
It depends on where you are, because sometimes people. Yeah, that's bad. We usually were lucky and got under the trees.
Okay, and then my question, the email was forwarded. I received it. I did get it. I just dropped the ball. I'm sorry. I said I would contact somebody and I didn't, but I'm sure that we can get a spot. My question now is who all wants to participate?
I would.
Okay. All right. So we got. One, two, three, and I would too. You wanted to? Okay. What about that? What about in the lower deck there? Are you guys interested too?
Lord. The infield. or
What day of the
outfield.
week is it? A Saturday?
Yes.
I might be able to do the afternoon on that day.
I think it runs from like 10 to 2 or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So it's nice if somebody wants to come like in the middle for an hour, in case like both people have to leave and the other two people haven't shown up yet or something like that. I mean, if the booth is unoccupied for a few minutes, it's not, worlds aren't going to crumble.
Yeah, we
but-
can work that out, yeah.
And my next question was, does it need to be public noticed, Brad, that we're going to be all together at this one location?
We can do that.
Yeah, it was never an issue. It was just understood that we would not sit there and discuss.
So, several months ago, I don't remember what it was, there was some kind of thing, and there were like stations all around, this room, and different people had tables, and they were handing out all kinds of really cool literature at that, so, and some of it was, I think some of it was city staff, so there should be enough stuff, that we can gather up stuff to hand out. But I think it'd be good. I think it would be good to have a presence there.
Her name, I'm sorry, I missed her name. Was it Kim?
Kim.
The- Yeah, if someone knows her, if she
Yes.
plans on coming to another meeting, someone might call and say, hey, do you want to bring us, if you have anything at Native Plant Society you would want us to hand out at her
They'll
thing?
probably be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, we also used to give away a lot of trees, but that was a Tony thing.
That was actually in the tree farm.
Yeah.
And do we have any now that we can give away?
I could look into that.
Yeah, that was very popular. People like to take the little seedlings.
Okay, so we're a go for
It looks like we are a go for having a table at the Enchanted Forest on Earth Day.
and we'll finalize plans at the next meeting.
Yeah, so, yeah, we will have one more meeting before then, so that's good. Okay, so, next on the agenda is Native Municipal Canopy Landscaping, Native Plantings, and Management Trust Fund.
What a
So
garble
we're
of
opening
words.
up a discussion here.
Yes, motion to extend the meeting a half hour.
You guys okay with that? But that's like a dead stop. We got 20,
Or earlier.
27
Or
minutes to work through this, so.
All right,
All right, you guys all right with extending the meeting till 8 o'clock? Okay, here we go.
okay.
You're up.
The name, the Native Municipal Tree Canopy and Landscape Management Trust Fund, or simply the Native Landscape Trust Fund. So, in summary, what I wanted to say was that, you know, we've witnessed this growing loss of Florida natives due to human development. Our environment, our natural living habitat is being consumed by concrete, impervious surfaces, and compaction. And if this continues, it's going to squeeze the nature right out of Titusville's motto. Cities are impervious, and they need to be a little squishy if we're going to survive. There has to be places for trees and water. I know, I picked that up last week, and I absolutely loved the analogy. Because concrete and, well, anyway. So we have to prepare for the future, and in thinking, what's our city going to look like? And I thought that every citizen wants a professional police protection. They want high-quality fire department, the best possible administrators the city can offer. But how many people insist on the welfare of their community's treasure of trees entrusted to professional management? Our university, one university study indicated to me that 39% of municipalities systematically care for their publicly owned trees, and fewer than 15 actually hire foresters. The result is that many of the urban forests are in trouble, and throughout American cities, more shade trees are dying than are being replaced. Scarce financial resources are being wasted on plantings that are doomed from the start, and life-extending practices like soil improvements, pruning, and disease control are often neglected. By contrast, communities that employ a professional to manage their trees are the big winners. In our community, native plants, trees, and shrubs win big. They've lived here for thousands of years without fertilizer, insecticides, or watering once established. They survive drought, fire, heavy rains, and all manner of bugs because natives are naturally resistant to them. These are features of our land. Development is not likely to stop, so proper resource management going forward should be key. We need to be employing better practices, things like pocket rain gardens and structured wetlands. A managed urban forest, yes, from canopy to mycelium. Maintenance too. Employ alternatives and creative stormwater practices need to become the day. In summary, we need to do some engineering with nature. And so with that in mind, the plan, the Native Landscape Trust Fund is a very simple process. It's going to assess mitigation fees on new developments. It will assess development incentives based on the type and style of the development, with the remainder of any funds or fees collected going into an urban forest management trust fund that will manage an urban forest throughout our city. In specifically, on the handout that I gave you guys, the native plant mitigation fee assessment should be based on those things that we can point to that are concurrency items down the road. We need to value existing habitat and soil types, which right now we don't consider. We have many different soil types and many different habitats, and different species are found on those, and those are not considered either. We need to consider as well the scenic heritage and the natural beauty. Consider natural land versus disturbed land versus redeveloped land. Which has more value to the native environment? the one with more value should have a higher impact fee. There are hydrological services rendered by these lands. Right now, undeveloped, they absorb all their stormwater. They also provide groundwater recharge at no additional cost. Carbon capture, that's taken care of too. Disturbance of the topology, in other words, are they messing with the mycelium? Are they digging up the land and reorganizing all of that? When you do that, you affect the ability of that land to support life. So that's an impact. There are endemic, threatened, and endangered species, and they can be identified by simply looking at the soil types and the habitat types on that parcel. And if those soil types and habitat types exist, we can assume that that's habitat for those endangered and threatened species. And whether they are there or not, that habitat is valuable, and it means something to Titusville. There's also, from a stormwater perspective, there are nutrient load increases. There's a loss of vegetation, which means there's a loss of transevaporation, which means there's additional increases in stormwater simply because the plants can no longer take it up. That stormwater becomes runoff. Actually, all stormwater is runoff. It runs off the land. There's the introduction of fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides that were not there before that land was developed, that are there after that land is developed, that is now contained in our stormwater that is not being accounted for. There will be new sanitary sewers built, which means there's an increase in black water processing to the city. It also means there's an increased amount of effluent and biosolids that are being produced. Those need to be accounted for in this mitigation fee. There's an additional groundwater resource impact because groundwater recharge is now diminished due to all the additional impervious surface. And therefore, because groundwater is diminished, the future groundwater resources will also be diminished over time, which increases potable water demands with population growth, which means there's additional straws going into it. I think all of those things taken into account can provide the basis for a mitigation fund for native plants and native trees. Now, how does that fund get used? And this is where the idea started with the tree mitigation fund that became a beautification fund that is still not being used for the beautification of trees in the city. So here is how I think that fund should be deployed. I think when a development goes in, if that developer decides to use low impact development, then they should get a 50% rebate or incentive off of that mitigation fee. All things being considered, I think that's a worthwhile value to the city. I think vouchered Brevard County native plants should recover between 0 and 25% of that mitigation incentive if they plant between 30 and 80% respectively Brevard County native plants. I think they can recover 0 to 12.5% if they plant 30 to 80% respectively Florida regional native plants. And of course, I don't think there should be any incentive given to plants that are non-native in Brevard County or regionally native. In other words, I think all exotics should not regain any incentive for being planted. They can be on the recommended list, but we don't give them an incentive. The remainder of the funds, for example, someone that chooses not to use LID, the remainder of those funds will go into a native urban forest management plan, which will provide urban forest management and growth throughout the year. It recovers the remainder of the Native Plant Trust Fund. The funding can support a year-round urban forest management program that pays for a full-time forester, which can report to the tree board, which is us. It can provide overall awareness, tree awareness programs to the community. This forester and our forest management program can ensure that funds and resources are spent wisely, can initiate and assist volunteer groups like the Garden Club and our Florida Native Plant Society, Friends of the Enchanted Forest, and others, to enlist it into the development of our city. We can train, he can train, or she, and supervise city crews and contractors on ordinance compliance. They can become champions for tree plantings and preservation of existing trees throughout the city. And the forester can work with engineers and protect trees during highway construction, road widening. There's much that can be done in the maintenance capacity that will allow our trees and our urban forest to thrive. And one thing I want to consider specifically, since this is a native plant trust fund, it's not just the canopy trees that are important, it's also the understory and the shrubs and the low-level plantings and the mycelium into the ground. So it's from canopy to mycelium that's important. And if we're planting natives, we're doing the best that we can to feed our environment. I think we can count on an urban forest manager to implement our tree board urban forest plan, and this process, iteratively as it is, should provide sustainable funds for the tree board to be able to continue to develop an urban tree canopy for the city of Florida. That's what I'm proposing. Any comments?
Sounds fabulous.
So it looks like if they do LID and they use Brevard County native plants, they can eliminate 75% of this
Mitigation.
fee.
Yep.
Is there a way to get it to 100%?
I think if we do that, then we lose the ability to continue to grow and evolve this tree board and our urban forest. Because our urban forest takes management. A management takes a manager, someone to be doing that, to be managing that process. And if we're going to do that and have oversight, then there has to be a flow of money, a budget of some sort that covers that. And this does both. It allows us to solidify the tree board and justify the complaints that I had in the last meeting, which somehow didn't get tabled to this meeting, and we'll talk again in the next. But it gives us the ability to actually have the oversight that the tree board was requested of by the city council. And it provides a funding mechanism to make all this work. So I think as a process, this is just an outline. You know, I've been thinking about this and stewing on it for a couple of months. You guys kind of just got hit with the details today. But this needs to be something that we develop as a commission and bring forward to the city. And I think that this kind of approach will hopefully give us a better outcome in the future.
Member Young?
Just a question, these numbers on the back page, were these taken from an existing plan somewhere, or are these numbers that you just put on here?
20 to 80, 30%?
Yeah, like the 50%, the 25%, did that come from somebody's existing plan?
No, that was actually, I was just thinking, what was most important? What's the most important thing that we can be doing? And I started out looking at native plants, and I began to realize that native plants also need native habitat. And to get native habitat, you've got to do something a little different than moonscape the thing and compact the soil. You have to either amend it or you have to plan ways to making that work. And so I realized that LID is probably the most important thing that we can do for groundwater recharge and restoration of our lands. So I put that at the top of the list, and I thought that should be half the value.
So are there existing plans of this nature that we could mimic?
Nope.
Somebody?
This was right out of the air, right out of the thin blue. So, sorry, yeah, I have to kind of go with it.
So, Brad, last night at the city council meeting, I wasn't able to watch it, but on the agenda was a discussion about soil compaction, and also they were dredging up a discussion about the landscaping fund. Were you there last night? Can you give us a idea of how those discussions went, please? Thank you.
There were a couple of items on the city council's agenda yesterday. One was the soil amendment ordinance, was a first reading of the ordinance. Basically, it was an ordinance that we drafted at the city council's direction from several years ago. It took a while to get to it, including other ordinances, mainly because of some state laws that were passed, but then reversed. Basically, what it allows us to do is it kind of backs us up when we ask for a contractor or, the developer to amend the soil on a site in order to make sure that the vegetation will survive after planting. Mainly, and this is a result of sometimes you find properties that are being redeveloped, for example, and the soil on that property has been compacted and has been depleted in some way that it doesn't really support vegetation. So you have to amend it in some way. And so the language is really to help our staff enforce some requests, basically, based on best practices to make sure that the soils are properly treated in order to make sure the vegetation, as part of an approved landscape plan, will survive. There will be a final public hearing on that on March 26th before City Council. The second item had to do with a discussion, a recommendation that this commission made to the City Council several years ago related to the Landscape Trust Fund. You had asked them to consider limiting the use of the Landscape Trust Fund monies for the planting of canopy trees. Council at that time in 2021 supported that. We looked at the motion, the summary of action from City Council's meeting at that time. You have brought it up several times. We evaluated what they said. We also looked at City Council's meeting minutes and we felt that we needed to go back to City Council to ask them to clarify what they were really saying. So on the agenda item, we put the summary of action that the council stated at that meeting in 2021, stating that they were in support of the idea that after the gateway plans that the city has, right, and the Public Works has, and reviewed by FDOT for landscaping, that the additional monies, half of that will be dedicated to the planting of canopy trees. Council in 2021 generally supported that, but they didn't make any particular direction about that. And if they did give us direction, we would have had to come back with them with an amendment to the actual resolution that originally established that Landscape Trust Fund. That didn't happen last night. They decided to not make any action because, based on their discussion, they wanted to have as much flexibility with the use of those funds as much as possible. So the resolution says that the funds in that Landscape Trust Fund that we currently have must be for plantings on public property for public purpose, and that they wanted that general statement to be available for them to have as much flexibility as possible. So that's where they didn't make any action on that. So those are the two things that happened last night. I think that's what you're referring to.
So we're still then, since they didn't take any action, we're still in the position that all of the Landscape Trust Fund money will be used for the gateway projects. And then once the gateway projects are completed, then 50% of that money can be used for planting canopy trees in public places?
That was the recommendation that this commission made to City Council several years ago. Council verbally supported that, but they didn't make any specific direction to staff. That's why we went back to them last night to ask them for clarification. They did not give us any direction. In other words, they decided to not make action. So they did not give us direction to amend the resolution. So based on what the resolution says now, there is no provision in there that says that 50% of the funds shall be dedicated to canopy. It just says right now what it has always said since 2001, and that is it should be used for public purpose on public lands for planting of landscaping, and that's generally what it says.
That's discouraging.
Well, it's still at 50%.
Huh? No, it's not.
I thought they voted on that
No.
in 2021.
No, sir.
No.
They decided not to go forward with any specific direction on that. The reason that they decided not to make any directions, they wanted flexibility. The discussion I heard yesterday was that they want to hear proposals for projects as part of the budget on an annual basis. So right now, the Public Works Department, with council's approval already, has set aside some funds from the Landscape Trust Fund for that gateway landscaping project that's currently in permit review with FDOT. The remaining funds are there. They have not been allocated yet for any specific projects, as far as I understand.
Do you know how much of the fund is going to be used on gateways now? Has the gateway been trimmed down any, or is it still well over $1 million?
Oh, I thought about $500,000 was going to be utilized out of the trust fund for the gateway projects, but we can confirm that. I know the price tag for the full project is a lot more. And so there's some aspects of that whole project that are currently not funded yet, or nothing's been approved yet. Again, though, it's still in permit review with FDOT, so we're just waiting on to see what they say.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's helpful. So what do you guys think about Member Myjack's plan here?
Conceptually, I think it's very good and deserves credit to be elevated from the philosophical to the inner workings. How's this going to work? Because while Mike was explaining very eloquently the plan, in my mind, what was happening was what happens in my mind. Who's responsible? Who gets a voice? Where is this person located? In other words, planning and zoning can do whatever they want, and by the time it gets to him, it's done, or her, it's done. So therefore, I was looking more at the mechanics of how to inject, so that from the beginning of any project or any conversation with project, that this idea gets injected into, so that it goes into the planning phase. Because if we don't, I strongly believe if we don't get involved in the planning phase, it's a battle all the way. And so in my mind, as Mike was going through it, I'm going, okay, exactly. How do we do this mechanically? Because this is where we seem to be at a disadvantage. The conversation on the money for the monuments and the other stuff is a perfect example of a day late. Okay, and so in my mind, I want to be there the day, not a day late, and have a voice. Yeah. Not only that, but have a voice in that. So that's what I was trying to think through. How do we need to elevate what Mike to put some mechanics and at least take it for a test drive and see how it works with the inner working of the city. You know, all the other boards, people that are approving, you know, a lot of development. And if we don't get in there early, it's going to be hard.
Oh, yeah.
So that's all I wanted to say about that. And Mike, thank you. That was a good job.
Yeah, it's a different process. It's a new process that we would be adding. But I think it fills a piece. Having set up the plant list now so that we know what's native regional, and what's non-native, gives us the hook that we can figure out which plants count what, you know? So it's really a question of what the city wants to do with regards to how they want to handle this mitigation. When the tree mitigation fund was first set up, every tree greater than 6 inches was considered mitigation feed, and you had to pay a fee against that. We've raised that up to 20 inches now, right? So there's fewer funds going into the mitigation fund, a lot fewer. Well, what I'm raising is the issue that there's more than just trees that we're losing on this land. We're losing services that are environmental services that are going to now have to be provided by us, by the city. And that's going to cost additional funds and resources, right? And so, to me, that's what the impact is. If you have somebody moving in that's new and you're having to build a home, they didn't pay to build the roads, they didn't pay to put in the schools, they didn't pay for our existing fire, police, rescue, potable water, stormwater, or sanitary sewer. They are consuming excess resources that we have in capacity, which are supposed to be there for when we have floods and hurricanes and other natural disasters. So, though that to have and maintain that increased capacity means that we have to be charging an impact fee toward new development. And that impact fee, at least as far as these environmental concerns that I've rattled off are concerned, I think are justifiable and can provide the basis of doing an urban forest program and actually getting it done. Because once we've got money flowing in, we've got a forester taking care of the city, working on the plan that we develop as the tree board, we have a functioning board. And that's something that I don't think we have yet. And that's what I was trying to raise when I brought up the issue of what our charging orders were. We've been given charge to be the tree board for this city, and we've not been given the capacity or handles to do it. And I thought this would be a way that we could become effective in helping to beautify and grow our city as a tree city. So that's why I proposed this. And, you know, you guys want to change the percentages or balance, you know, feel free. I threw this out here because I heard people saying, well, we shouldn't have less than 30% native, and other people saying, well, we don't need more than 80%, because then you can't have turf grass and ornamentals. And so I figured that was a good bounding range, you know, 30 to 80%. You could make it 20 to 70. I don't care. The idea was what I was trying to get across, was how we're going to utilize what we're losing to justify replacing that as our city grows forward, so that we can build in these squishy spaces into our natural impervious city.
So how do you want to move forward?
Well, I think we should ask the staff for comment and see what we can do to move this process forward. Thank you. I'm not sure where else to go next. I mean, I've put together the idea and the outline. I've tried to explain it as best I can, but it's going to be up to us to decide whether to take it forward, and if so, how far.
Well, I think you did a good job explaining it, so if the committee's okay with us, you know, asking Brad to take this to the staff for comments, I think that's a good first step. Anybody else have, Member Perez?
No, it's just sort of reflecting on the fact that otherwise we're nowhere, man. I mean, the fact of the matter is nobody's going to do this, what you just did, for us unless we do it ourselves. And you took the lead to develop it or to envision it.
It's a start.
Are you good with that, Brad?
I would recommend that you make a recommendation to city council, because what you're the recommending body to them. They would have to give the staff direction as to what to do and whether to research this issue, these questions.
You need their permission. You need the city council's permission just to research it before you come back to us with comments?
Yes, they have to authorize the time that staff would spend on an endeavor like this. So I would recommend that you make a recommendation to city council to consider this proposal.
Okay.
And then they would have to decide how to go forward with that. Whether they may be asking staff to come back with some feedback or research or whatever that might be. Or maybe to send it back to you for more clarification. That's possible as well.
So it would go on the city council's agenda at a meeting at some point in time, and then it would behoove us to show up and comment and support why we're suggesting it?
Yes, as the commission, as the recommending body to city council, you're recommending a policy change. So that is your role. So you would need to, this sounds, what I'm seeing here, this is a policy recommendation to city council. So you're asking them to consider to explore and adopt a policy.
Well, my question would be, is this in line with the city's vision? Because if it isn't, it's not going anywhere.
Which vision would that be?
Whatever the city's vision is for the natural area of the city, is this in line with what their vision is? I mean, are we even going in the right direction?
Well, any policy change is going to be a change of that vision, or whatever that policy is, whatever city council's direction is.
Do
So
they
if we're
have-
talking, I'm sorry.
Do they have a vision for the natural lands of the city? Do they have a vision?
Well, the vision I think you're probably referring to is, and what I would refer to is the policies that you see in the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So we would look at the comprehensive plan as a first starting point, see what is the guidance that we can provide to city council. Because anything we do would have to be consistent with that comprehensive plan. Otherwise, we'd have to amend that document.
Right.
Are we getting ready to do that soon?
As a matter of fact, in the next agenda item, Abby is going to give you a summary of some things that have been happening, including some work that that will be coming to you soon as far as interviews and workshops related to environmental policies to consider as part of a project to possibly amend the comprehensive plan. So that's upcoming. So we're going to ask, she's going to bring that up, and we're going to be asking your input and participation in that in the next few meetings, possibly.
So we need to extend the meeting.
Need to extend the meeting for 15 minutes?
Just so you know, there is no adopted bylaw policy related to extending your meeting.
Oh, there isn't?
There is not.
Oh, so we don't have to waste time.
You don't have to do that unless you want to go ahead and amend your bylaws to do that.
No, thank you. How come we've been doing it?
I think it was an informal agreement that the commission made several
Well,
years ago.
maybe we're just copying the city council because we see them do all the.
I know
do it all
why.
the time. Huh? Why?
I know why.
You've been here all
Because when
forever.
when I joined the years and years and years ago, we were told that we had a 2-hour meeting. And then one of the chairs used to let the meetings go way over. And then when I took over as chair, I was basically called into the city and was told these meetings will take 2 hours because they have to pay people.
All right, so we're not gonna vote on extending the meeting, but,
But we will vote, you need a motion?
I think we need a motion, so why don't you make a motion on how you want to proceed?
I would like to make a motion that we propose a policy to city council for the Native Municipal Tree Canopy and Landscape Management Trust Fund as a process by which we can grow our native Titusville tree canopy and native plants.
Is there a second?
Can you clarify that motion? I'm sorry. It was, what's the action you're asking council? You're recommending them to?
We're asking council for permission to proceed, right, with this policy approach that we recommend.
Okay.
And as far as it reaches into the comprehensive plan, I want to make sure that we do that too. And it sounds like you're already on the ball with that, so.
Do we need their permission to proceed?
Well, we need to get council's permission to give Brad and staff time, money, authorization to comment, so.
Before we actually submit that recommendation, I mean, you didn't put a time frame in your motion. So could we have another meeting to like flesh this out like in prose and not like an outline, but like a one sheet where it's set and explained that we would submit? I would be more comfortable with that because.
You want to rewrite it?
Well, the outline is good if someone's explaining it to you, but it doesn't read well alone.
Oh, no.
So it would be good if we had like a couple of paragraphs that would summarize your position on this.
Like a white paper.
Yeah, before we send it to council. And we would look at that next meeting and then submit.
All right, I'll make a motion to put it on the agenda for the next meeting so that we can review it. Would that be better? And then forward that along to council? I'm
Motion in a second and then move to table if you want to.
Okay, I make a motion that we propose the Native Municipal Tree Canopy and Landscape Management Trust Fund, or simply the Native Landscape Trust Fund, as a policy recommendation to City Council, and then we'll table it.
Once we finish it.
Yeah, once we finish it. So second and then table it. How's that?
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion by member Myjack and a seconded by member Perez. There was something in the minutes that is moved to the April meeting. Let's see,
Your powers and duties.
powers and duties. Okay,
Be at the next meeting.
okay, so those can be the two items on the next
That
meeting?
and this,
Okay.
because they go together.
Right, okay, sounds good. All those in favor say aye? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll talk about it.
I'm coming back with this and the white paper.
No, that's clear. I just want to make sure, the first agenda item you had was about the landscape list. Did you want to see that final version back? Or was the motion to just allow us to make that change and bring it back to city council? Okay, that's how I understood it too. All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to staff reports. Okay, petitions and requests from the public.
Never rule that out. Okay, St. Ange, Maryland Avenue. I think this is absolutely beautiful, but I do have a question if you don't mind. Okay, the front page is talking about a native plant mitigation fee assessment, and you did talk about an impact fee. So that's what I'm asking about. How are you going to assess these funds to be used on the backside? You talk about an impact fee. Are you for every new house that's built, or for every acre that's destroyed? Or that's what I need clarity on.
Well, that's what I don't have.
Okay.
Is the specifics.
Okay.
I wanted to come up with the outline of how we were going to first acquire a resource that we didn't have,
Okay.
and then use that resource to obtain the results that we want,
Okay.
which is LID and native plantings and so forth. So the only way that we can acquire a mitigation fee, my understanding is if it has to do with a concurrency issue. And if we're increasing or causing an impact on a concurrency issue, then we have a right to be able to charge a mitigation fee for that. I'm not sure, Kay, if this is the best approach. It's just what I came up with.
Right.
There may be another way that the city might want to provide the resource to be able to give back the incentive, but you can't provide an incentive if you don't have a resource to give in the first place. So I was trying to come up with what I thought were the justification necessary to create that resource using just simple concurrency issues. But some of the values that I have that I consider valuable, like what the habitat type is it a functioning wetland? Well, whether it's functioning or not, it's a wetland, it's important. And those things have more value to me than, say, a disturbed piece of land or a derelict building that's going to be rebuilt. So the impact fee, the mitigation aspect of that, I think would be a lot less and should have some value based on that natural scenic value to us as citizens, plus the stormwater and the hydrological aspects that are all impacted by development.
Well, I think the backside, what you're justifying is wonderful, but I think maybe for next time, maybe you should provide some clarity on how you would assess it. I mean, unless you just want staff to do that assessment, but it would seem that you would want to present your vision of how it could be assessed, how this impact fee could be
Yeah,
assessed.
but my vision and Mr. Delgado's vision may not be the same. And the policy that the city has already established may not have any congruency. And so it's best, I think, to work with the city as we develop this. And to do that, we need to get council's permission to give them some budgetary time.
Okay. Well, anyways, that was just my concern. So thank you very much.
Any ideas you have, Kate, please forward them along. I'd be happy to take any input on this.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak under petitions and requests? Okay, all right. Now we're moving on to staff reports.
I'll keep this brief. There's just 4 things I wanted to touch on with you guys. So I'll give you an update on the status of the Urban and Community Forestry Grant Program. City Council directed us to apply for an urban forestry master planning grant. So I've been in contact with Todd Little, who's with the Florida Forest Service. I actually spoke with him today. He stated that this grant opportunity is undergoing review and has the potential to maybe open up in the next 2 months. So when that grant opens up, I will be one of the first to know. I've asked him to please reach out to me and let me know when that's available. So it's coming. It's just taking a little bit of time. Also, with the Natural Resources Comp Plan project that we have going on, I know we previously had spoken to you about the consultant Inspire who we're working with on this project, how they're going to be reaching out to you, doing one-on-one interviews, and how we're going to have a regular TEC meeting, but then also a workshop following after. So I know it was kind of proposed to be potentially April and May. There's a little bit of a delay in the project. There's been some change in staff with Inspire, so this may be more towards the summertime that this will get the ball rolling. So just keep it on your radar. We'll be reaching out to you about that project. An update about the Space View and Veterans Memorial Park pedestrian pier. It's anticipated to open in the end of April. So I've been speaking with Sue, our Community Redevelopment Agency planner, and with Public Works on that. So that's the anticipated date. And then also a brief update on the Indian River Avenue Sewer Project. I spoke with Kevin Cook with Public Works today. He said that the project is approximately 40% complete at this time, with an estimated completion date of August 2024. So those are just some brief updates for you. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah. Well,
Go ahead.
I was just wondering how much of the plumbing of the city is being covered by this project?
Where is this project going and how far?
In other words, is it just sewage lines or is it water lines? Is it?
It's a sewer line only project.
Right, so it's about 9,400 feet of a sewer line that was awarded by contract in December of 2021.
So that's what portion of our, I imagine it's the oldest lines that we have, right?
Yeah, it's one of the older lines that we have. So we're trying to slowly replace these. So this one is located off of, and correct me if I'm wrong, on Indian River, and actually Mr. Young will know for sure. In front of his house, Indian River Avenue, all the way going north to, go ahead, to Sandpoint Park, and then it's going to go loop up, or go east, and then it's going to go through Sandpoint Park as well, up to
South Street.
South Street. Nope, I've got that wrong.
So I have can I have a question?
Of course.
We have,
I can't see.
What I understand in that when they're in front of my house digging a hole 10 foot deep that I can't get out of my driveway, that they broke some gas lines to people's houses and water lines to people's houses, and they had to fix them. And so you can see fires at 9 o'clock at night because the gas line's broken and they're trying to keep them controlled. So there's a pump house, a sewage pump house on South Street. And then there's one over here on in this park over here. They're trying to connect the two. So they're going from a 6-inch pipe to a 12-inch pipe. I have pictures of all this. So they've had a lot of difficulties in trying to do this. And I don't know what's all happening except that they put signs up to keep people, so they know about it, but yet people knock them down and drive through the road anyway.
So I don't know why people won't stay off a road that's under construction, but they don't. So I'm really appreciative of what they're doing because they're upgrading, doing a wonderful job of redesigning, upgrading the sump stations and the pipes. It's just they've had a lot of difficulties with many different things, and that's been slowing them down, and I hope they overcome that. And the contractor has been the problem, not the city.
This is old technology, by the way. I remember when, this is very old technology at this point. I remember when it first came out. And so I was kind of curious because they don't really repair anything. They kind of reline the pipes, you know, with a resin, which under heat.
It's different than what's going on here.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah, they're putting
Oh, in this section, they're putting in, oh, so it's 9,000 feet of new pipe?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Now I've got the information in front of me. So there's an interactive map that was published. It's available online that you can look at. So it's 9,400 feet of sewer line. And it starts from the South Street lift station going north on Indian River Avenue. Then it's going to cross Garden Street and keep going north and then go all the way to past Marina Park. So it's a complete replacement.
Yeah, and that's already done, by the way. I go to San Juan every day, and those stations are up and running. City has been working on the electronics. There's no more digging going on. The only digging is on the south side. But San Juan has been blended and sodded.
by the way, is that a new box that went in at Sandpoint?
Yeah,
Special one with a clear cover so you can see it.
Cool.
Boxes with a weir.
Huh?
2 boxes with a weir.
Yeah.
And the weir is there for any type environment when it happens.
Nice.
And that's already done. They finished that. As a matter of fact, today they had it open and we're looking inside to see what's in there.
All right, anything else? Anybody? Okay, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting then. Huh? What are we doing?
Future agenda?
I thought we talked about that. So we got our powers and duties on the next meeting, and Mike's native plant mitigation plan is on the next meeting.
Yeah, I had one thing to add.
Okay,
And this will require a vote. I would like to move to amend our bylaws to remove Section 6, petitions and requests from public present non-agenda items.
did you want to remove both of them, or just
No,
one of them?
just 6. And return to the agenda that we ran for many, many years, because, I mean, I'll give my reasons if you want, but this has to be put, I heard from the city, this has to be put on next meeting's agenda, and in order to be put on the agenda, there has to be a vote. But I think our noble experiment is causing us to not get our work done. And we should just go back to having public comment on regular old and new business. Anyone can talk. And if anyone has any petition request, that goes in number 9, which will become number 8, because everything will move up 1. That is what I am proposing. We changed it to this a few years ago, and I don't feel it's allowing us to get work done properly.
By giving petitions and requests up front.
Yes.
You're suggesting just removing
Yes, I
that
think
entirely?
I think it's wonderful, but I think we get waylaid and we get into questions and answers and we take votes and motions. And I feel that's out of order, and I think that should be taken out.
I agree.
You seconding? I thought,
I second that motion. Is there any discussion? Right, we're voting, the motion made by Member Yount and seconded by me was to put the discussion about dropping the first petitions and requests from our agenda. That would be a change to the bylaws. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's on the agenda. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Yes, okay, done.